What's up, you guys? It is Simone, aka Money Moan, and we are so back. We are back. I just had to come in and tap in with you guys to let you guys know that I'm alive. It's been a minute. Flicks, I feel like it's been a minute since the people seen us. And I feel like a lot has happened between that time. I feel like the last time we left the people, we were in the middle of some CBA stuff. But I want to talk about what happened earlier today. Okay. And the thing that happened earlier today was the expansion draft. And as you guys know, the W is adding two more teams for this upcoming season, and that is the Toronto Tempo and the Portland Fire. And they picked up some decent pieces in the draft, and they also picked up some international players. So briefly, I'm gonna explain how these expansion drafts work. So on each WNBA team, there are 12 players on the roster. Okay. So a team will be like, okay, here are 6 players that you guys can draft from. Our other 6 you cannot touch. There's only one team that did not have players in the expansion draft, and that was the Chicago Sky. We could dig a little deeper into that another time, but I kind of have an idea why they would do that. But anyways, the expansion draft happened today. We officially have 2 new teams inked into the W, you guys. Portland and Toronto 2026 for wait. Speaking of 2026, shout out to the WNBA. They stood on business. They made it happen. My ladies are going to be millionaires before taxes. They're going to be getting to that bag, and it's lit. It's lit. And you guys, just a heads up. I know in the past couple episodes, me and the W have been beefing. We're cool now because my ladies are getting paid. Okay, so for the 2026 season, we have 2 new teams. Okay, so that put us at a total of 16, I believe. Flicks, 16 teams or 15.
We'll end up at 18 by 2030, but yeah, we're
Yes.
around 16 teams.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So progress. And like I said, we will have a season for 2026. Shout out to the WNPA committee for standing on business and making things happen across the board. This is a life-changing CBA. And what I mean by life-changing is the numbers across the board are going to set our ladies up for success and put them in better positions to take care of themselves and their families. Because I feel like a lot of the ladies were doing that, but they were stretching pennies. You know what I mean? They were figuring out how to make it happen. Now they are getting paid for their work and they are marketable. Okay. I'm just gonna go over the list, and I got my iPad up with the numbers because I don't want to mess these numbers up. Okay. So let's just say, let me just start off with the average salary. So the average salary started at the beginning was 120,000. Now it's 600,000 annual salary. Okay, average salary. So that's for your average players. Okay, and for your super max. So I'm talking about your Asia Wilsons, your Brianna Stewarts, your Chelsea Grays, your star players. Prior to this CBA, the supermax was 250,000, $250,000. Now the supermax is 1.4 million. Huge, 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 huge. And let's look at the minimum salary, like the minimum. So this is kind of like, you look at this as kind of like your rookie salary and your minimum. Okay, they're pretty similar. So the minimum before the new CBA was inked was $66,000, and that jumped to $300,000. That is huge. Okay, and one of the big things they were talking about, or it was like a discussion over, was revenue share. And as you guys know, the revenue share prior to this CBA being inked was 9%. The ladies at first wanted 30. The W was trying to give them 15. They met around the middle at 20%. And the numbers across the board are huge. And looking at it from a team's perspective, there was a very huge jump in salary cap. Okay, the salary cap jumped from 1.5 million to $7 million, and this is a game changer because a team has more money, which means they are able to pay the players what they deserve, and also players might want to come to an organization because the money is there. Okay, and I think this is very huge. And another thing that I liked in the CBA, because there's so many things in there, but like there was 2 pointers that really caught my attention. The clauses for pregnant players and the fact that they paid out all the retired players of the W. And I felt that was very, very pivotal because the ladies before us crawled so these ladies could walk. And now the next generation of women's basketball players will enjoy the benefits of the generations before them. Okay. This is very huge. This is very huge. Flix, I just want your input on one of the few points that I touch because I don't think people understand how game changing this is.
I mean, I think they did it. It took time. It took a lot of patience. Took a lot of teamwork. But I
Yeah,
think
it
they
took too
finally did
long.
it. They they I think this isn't the finish line, but this is the right step in the right direction. I think it took a
One
long
thousand
time to get
percent.
to this step in general. So it is good that standing on business did lead us to this point right here. Uh,
Um,
I think some of the biggest things has to be the supermax increase.
yeah.
I think there's already a lot of parity in the league as it is, but it'll be interesting to see players go to teams that aren't as good but can spend more money than other teams. I think we haven't seen that. It kind of seems like usually in a W in the offseason, whichever team actually has money left is able to get those big name stars, but there isn't much of a strategic approach to attacking a superstar in the offseason.
Yeah, I think it's rooted a little different compared to the NBA, right? Because I feel like NBA they look more into market, the that super team question, the money. And I think that's why the W has always been so competitive and always been fun because you got to have a love for the game. You have to have the love for the culture. And a lot of the teams create culture by picking up these players. And a lot of these players also sacrifice money. They sacrifice a lot. So I think now with money being on the floor, I feel like we could see a lot of those bigger market teams get some kind of like better rosters. And I feel like there will never be no such thing as a super team in the W, but I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of see like these quote unquote super teams in like the 2027 or the 2028 season because there's money. There's money in these markets. And then speaking of teams and big markets, the Houston Comets will be making a comeback. And the Connecticut, which means the Connecticut Sun are moving. So the owners got that for 300 million. So Houston, we have a problem. We
Yeah,
have a problem.
there's I do think there were some great things that happened, but I do wish the W was able to at least add two more roster spots, which is substantially like way more money than they already have bargained for. But having two more slots, it's so painful to see the rookies just get eaten alive in the first couple weeks of preseason and end up not making teams where we know they're good enough.
Yeah, so here's my take on it, right? And I felt like I touched on this before in the prior seasons. And I was just having a conversation with this with some of my sports agent friends. I think it's the timing, right? So the timing of the draft, the timing of when that transition happens is very, very small, a very small window compared to NBA, right? So let's just compare the two. So let's look at now, like the women's college basketball championship will be Sunday, April 5th. Draft April 13th. Camp will most likely be the week and a half after because season starts May 8th. And when I mean season starts May 8th, they're throwing the ball up. So, how can a player have time to develop, pick up the pick up what's being ran because it's a transition. It's a transition that a lot of athletes can't grasp early. And this is why, like, when you watch the draft and those 30 something names get called, out 30 something names that get called, there's only going to be 4 or 5 of them that's really going to see the floor or either be healthy or make an impact because those ladies are going to be equipped and they're just going to get a hang of it just off their basketball smarts or capabilities. And when you look at the NBA, their draft is what in the summer, so which means they most likely are going to play April 6th, the day after the women. Between April 7th to the draft in, I believe, June, because that's when they get drafted, or May, right? It's some time. They have weeks to go to a trainer. They have a combine. They're going to go to some type of Rico runs or something like that. They get drafted. Then they have like a week or two to process it. Then they got summer league. Then they got training camp. And then they have season. Do you see the difference in the steps, right? And then a lot of people always be like, but in the women, they get hurt a lot. And they get hurt a lot because look at that short window. And if you really think about it, in that time where you kind of have quote unquote off days, let's be realistic. Say like if an off period for women is like 2 weeks. After that 2 weeks, you're probably only gonna not do nothing for probably like 4 or 5 days because you need to be in shape. You need to be in shape. You need to be prepared for what's about to happen. So I think that draft window has to change. And I had an idea. I just want to get your opinion on it. So I think the W in like just women's college basketball in general should take the idea of baseball, right? So you know how the MLB draft happens while these guys are still in college, and I think the draft happens during the College World Series, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of have a period where they could go. They have a transition period. So I'm thinking it would be more reasonable to kind of have a draft sometime in December, just so these ladies can have a, a window to transition. Because if you think about it, say like as soon as they go far in the postseason and the tournament, they get eliminated. They have time. They have a easier transition time, in my opinion. Like they'll have more time. I don't know. I think they have to just rework their whole system because if they gave the women more time to develop, more rest, because remember, a lot of these women is nonstop. They have to frame that better if they want to see more women play and have healthier seasons. That's my take on that.
Yeah, so MLB has their draft usually in July, and their season starts, around now, around April.
Mm-hmm.
Only, I mean, we need some work. We need some workshopping with this, but I would say if the women had their draft too early, we'll probably see too many women sit out of the rest of their college basketball season, which could be a little dangerous. If a lady gets drafted in December and decides to sit out or shut it down. So I was thinking maybe a draft right before March Madness might
Okay,
work.
so like after their conference tournaments, right?
Yeah, so then potentially if you get drafted, you sit out March Madness, which potentially could hurt college basketball, but would be good for a woman that's getting ready for the WNBA, right?
Oh
To have
no, you wouldn't sit out. So peep this. You wouldn't sit out, right? I would take this from like a high school standpoint, right? So like for example, like when you make it far in the high school playoffs, you play as far as your school takes you. But when club season starts, even though your season is still going, you still have to show up. to like still show up to practice and stuff. So I feel like there needs to be something similar happening. Like, I'm not saying like have these girls physically show up to the facilities, but it needs to be some type of onboarding process. And I think something like that needs to happen for these upcoming seasons, because it's like these women are going to be getting so much money. They're going to be getting, this is going to be a huge transition for a lot of these ladies. So I think there needs to be some type of onboarding process.
Yeah, I mean, and the more money, the more incentive not to play free college basketball, or college basketball
They're
for
getting
women.
paid now, so they're going to play. And I think it's the game isn't so sucked up in this capitalism that they're going to be like, oh, I'm just going to sit out. I feel like there's still some competitive edge. There's still culture left. I don't think the capitalism bug hit everyone completely. I think there's still culture left. I do, because if that was the case, I feel like some ladies would have went to the draft a long time ago. You know what I mean? Even if the money was there or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real catch-22 because then you think about the ladies that don't, if they wouldn't play, ladies that wouldn't play in the tournament, which ladies would step up from which teams, and really, how much would that affect the college game if the draft was during the college basketball season?
Honestly, honestly, just looking at the drafts over the years, I've probably seen over 20 something WNBA drafts. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
The way the time frame is, like I remember I used to sit and watch 30 something women name get called, and throughout the season only about, I'm being really honest, nice with the numbers, like 6 or 7 of them will play and make an impact.
Hmm.
I think this CBA will be important because there was also something where like they're going to have a better like staff across the board, and I think they need to focus on player development. They need to focus on player development, because I could go through the years of where I've seen really good and some great college players thrive, but when they get to the league, it's kind of like they hit that freshman wall. Like, they can't seem to find a fit, they can't seem to find a groove. And the one that I could think of now from this past season was Haley Van Lith. There's no way she had a great college career at the four or five I'm sorry, 3 schools, no shade, at the 3 schools she attended, and she's not seeing the floor, especially with the Chicago Sky, a team that needed a point guard. So my thing is, that money needs to be, they need to invest a lot of money in the player development, because there's no way. There's no way. And I'm saying that because she's talented. She's talented enough to be out on that floor. She's talented enough to be out on that floor. So I think they need to focus on player development. They also need to find, like I said, a better draft window, because I've seen something too where like they're planning on extending the WNBA season until November. So we're going to be seeing W basketball from, I don't think it's going to be this season, but think about it, the following season, from like, let's say as early as Cinco de Mayo weekend to most likely the week before Thanksgiving. Like, there's going to be basketball, longer basketball in the States. And then think about it, if basketball's over in the W's over in November, Rival's going to begin in January. They're going to play from January to March.
Hmm.
It's a win-win for me, because I like that they get to stay in the States and they get to make money and they get to grow their markets. But I think something has to give. And I think that's one of the things that kind of scares me with this, because we've seen with the W how like they get a lot of good and they can't really juggle it. There's not, it's kind of like we're learning as we go. And it's nothing wrong with learning as you go, but I feel like this is a very important point. Like, we can't mess this up.
This also leads me to this. Do you think that the WNBA could possibly erase Unrivaled now they got a new
No,
deal.
they're not. No,
They're gonna make the
Unrivaled.
season longer.
They are going to make the season longer, but I think Unrivaled is the perfect amount of. It's a perfect league. It's like a 7 week league. That's not bad. And if you think about it as a basketball player, you're most likely going to work out with your trainer. You're going to lift. You're on a regimen. And the thing is that Unrivaled, you're going to be on that same regimen, but the only difference is it's iron sharpening iron. You're playing against some of the other top players in the league because Unrivaled is the cream of the crop. Unrivaled is the top like 5% of the W. Let's be realistic.
Mhm.
Let's be realistic, okay? So it's like the top 5 to 10% of the W because we're not going to sit here and act like it's just whatever out on that floor. No, it's great product on that floor, and you get to work on your game in between games. You get to live. You get to have everything right there and still be competitive and have fun, and then make some more money and grow your market. Come on, come on. That's not going to go anywhere. I would just recommend for Unrivaled if they do add more teams, if they add like 2 more teams, just condensing the league. I would just condense the the games in a way because I've noticed the past 2 seasons of Unrivaled, certain games had to get canceled because players were hurt. So I don't know how that will look, but I feel like they will find a way. I feel like Unrivaled is way ahead of the W as far as like working with the players, maneuvering and pivoting and figuring things out. So I'm not worried about that. I'm more so worried about better drafting times because just like the NBA, a lot of them guys that get drafted and they go through the combine, they go through summer league. A lot of them go through all those phases and still can't make a team. So imagine the women. You only get 3 weeks. Those guys get from July to October to figure it out. That's why I always say, Flicks, the W is the toughest league to get into and stay into.
Well, I'll say this: Unrivaled took a lot of unnecessary shots at the WNBA while they was closed down.
Of
I would
course.
not be surprised if Kathy and her crew aren't gonna steal the 3-on-3 concept for certain events, aren't gonna steal the one-on-one competition for All Star Weekend, aren't gonna try to push as many contracts and as many deals away from these ladies in Unrivaled. So I'm really interested to see how this battle goes on moving forward now.
Oh,
After
let me be a messy boot. So, did you know that Fee and Stewie came to the W to be a partner for Unrivaled, and the W said no?
Mhm.
But I wouldn't mind seeing an All Star Unrivaled versus W, Team Unrivaled versus Team W.
I mean, you kind of think about how lucrative the NBA is and how they don't really let, players do much in the offseason. At what point does the W do that with their players?
Well, that was the conflict all through the years because it's like, hey, we got to do this. You're not paying us. So a lot of them, that's what happened with the Gabby Williams situation. Like, remember when she was with the Sparks,
Hmm.
and then like the Sparks quote unquote suspended her? They didn't suspend her. Her season in France was going good. They made it to the post. They made it far. So they honored that, and there was no real rule book in the W where it's like, oh, she's not playing with us because you know what I mean? Because she got to play with France because we're not paying them. That's why it's kind of like they use the word suspended and stuff like that. So it was a lot of loopholes, and I feel like certain teams respected players going overseas to get money, and other teams didn't. So that's why you seeing a lot of tension with certain players in certain organizations. But I feel like with this CBA, there shouldn't be no issue with that. There shouldn't be no issue with that. So like I think moving forward, it's the W they have to learn and also kind of work with the players. They have to grow, they have to work with the players, focus on player development. especially if you want to have a longer season. And then focus and invest more in the health of these ladies because I'm tired of seeing these ACL injuries, and those are the things I really want them to focus on. That's what I really want them to focus on. But anyway, that's enough for my rant. But just know the W season starts May 8th, and you guys know what that means. Season 4 of Triple M's is coming soon. Do we have a date yet? No. Don't ask us why. It's none of your business. We have real jobs too. Very important jobs. And we find time to come on here and bless y'all with this conversation, okay? But anyways, thank y'all for tuning in with the rant. Make sure y'all like and subscribe. Make sure y'all run it up. Talk to me in the comments. Please let me know what you guys think, okay? And if there's something you guys want us to talk about in season 4, make sure y'all put that in the comments. If y'all want us to do a draft recap, please let us know because the draft is soon. If y'all not telling me nothing, then I'm not gonna cover the draft because I really don't really care for the draft like that anyway. That's just me. That's just me. I'll cover the draft if enough of y'all tell me to. But I will see y'all next time. We are out of here.